Welcome to Women on Purpose. My name is Jo, and I'm so glad you're here. Imagine a world where corsets aren't just about looking ladylike. They hide secret weapons, fuel steam-powered wings, and carry blueprints for rebellion. That's the magic of steampunk, a world where women break the rules instead of following them. Growing up, I was told to be a proper lady. Sit still, dress nicely, don't argue. But I always admired the wild girls. The ones who ran barefoot, spoke their minds, and didn't ask for permission. They reminded me of the heroines in steampunk stories, the ones who refused to stay in their assigned roles. Steampunk isn't just about cool goggles and airships. It's a rebellion. It's a way of saying, what if women in the past had more choices? And it's a perfect lens to examine how even today, women are expected to fit into a narrow idea of what's acceptable. The images in this video aren't just decoration. They tell a story. Each one is carefully chosen to reflect the battle between being proper and breaking free, just like the women in steampunk do. From elegant Victorian settings to bold, rebellious heroines, these visuals bring the essay's message to life. As you watch, notice how each image represents the tension between tradition and independence, expectation and self-expression. Let these visuals remind you that you, too, have the power to rewrite the rules and create your own story. The Victorian standard, what it meant to be respectable. In the 1800s, a woman's worth was tied to how well she played the role of the perfect lady. She was expected to be modest, polite, and obedient. Her future, marriage, children, and a life dedicated to pleasing others. Fast forward to today. Sure, we have more rights, but do we really have more freedom? Women still get judged for how they dress, how loudly they speak, and how ambitious they are. Ever been told to smile more, to tone it down? To be more ladylike? That's the ghost of Victorian respectability still whispering in our ears. The Rebels, steampunk's unconventional women. Steampunk asks a powerful question. What if women never followed the rules? These heroines are inventors, pilots, explorers. They wear corsets, but only because they want to, not because society demands it. They don't wait for permission. They build airships. They fight back. They carve their own paths. And that's why steampunk resonates with so many of us today. It's a fantasy, but it reflects a real-world struggle. Women are still told to shrink themselves to be just right, not too opinionated, not too ambitious, not too loud. But like a steampunk heroine, we have the power to rewrite the story. Modern respectability politics. Are we still fighting the same battle? The truth is, women today are still walking a tightrope. Speak up too much? You're bossy. Stay quiet? You're too timid. Wear makeup? You're trying too hard. Don't wear makeup? You let yourself go. And social media? It amplifies these pressures with endless rules about how to be attractive but not too much. Confident but not intimidating. Strong but not aggressive. Steampunk women don't play by these rules. And neither should we. Choosing the steampunk path. Defying the proper label. So, how do we break free? We start by embracing who we are, fully, unapologetically. We stop making ourselves small. We challenge the unspoken rules that say women have to fit into neat little boxes. Steampunk teaches us something powerful. We don't have to accept the world as it is. We can create our own. So, what's one expectation you've felt pressured to follow, and what would happen if just for today you ignored it? Because the future doesn't belong to the proper women who follow the rules. It belongs to the bold ones who write their own. The Victorian standard of proper women. What it meant to be respectable. In the Victorian era, Being a respectable woman wasn't about intelligence, creativity, or strength. It was about politeness, modesty, and obedience. A woman's worth was measured by how well she followed the rules, how quietly she existed, and how little she disrupted the world around her. Marriage wasn't just expected, it was her purpose. Dreams of education, ambition, or adventure? Those were considered distractions at best and scandalous at worst. Women were trained to be seen, not heard, to support men's ambitions rather than chase their own. Wearing the right dress, speaking in soft tones, and maintaining a delicate, graceful presence were more important than having opinions or passions. Even reading the wrong books or expressing too much curiosity could label a woman as rebellious or improper. Fast forward to today, and while times have changed, echoes of this mindset still linger. Women are still judged for how they speak, dress, and behave. Assertiveness can be mistaken for aggression, and ambition can be seen as a threat. Social media reinforces these expectations, pressuring women to present a perfect version of themselves, pretty, polite, and never too much. But what if we refused to shrink ourselves? What if we, like the daring women in steampunk stories, rejected the idea that respectability is more important than authenticity? Victorian women may have been forced into rigid roles, but today, we have the power to rewrite our own stories. How these rules still linger. Today, even though we're living in the 21st century, the pressure to be a proper woman hasn't completely disappeared. Women are still judged for how they dress, speak, and express emotions, just like in Victorian times. We're told to smile more, to be likable, and not to be too aggressive. Sound familiar? If a woman speaks up, she's called bossy. If she stays quiet, she's weak. If she wears makeup, she's trying too hard. If she doesn't, she's letting herself go. No matter what we do, it seems like someone has an opinion about it. Social media only makes it worse, constantly showing us images of the perfect woman. Flawless, confident, but never too bold. At school, at work, and even in friendships, we feel the pressure to balance being smart but not intimidating, kind but not a pushover, attractive but not too much. These unspoken rules come from the same Victorian-era mindset that tried to keep women in their place. Back then, respectability was about being quiet and obedient. Today, it's about fitting into a version of womanhood that still feels just as limiting. But here's the truth. We don't have to play by these rules. We don't have to shrink ourselves or make everyone comfortable. Just like the rebellious heroines in steampunk, we can choose to live unapologetically, bold, loud, and completely ourselves. A personal reflection. I felt that pressure to tone myself down, to be more palatable. But what if I don't want to? What if I'm tired of making myself smaller just to fit someone else's idea of what a woman should be? In the Victorian era, women were expected to be quiet, polite, and agreeable. Never too bold, never too outspoken. And while we may not be wearing corsets and practicing perfect curtsies today, that same pressure still exists. I've lost count of how many times I've been told to be nice, to not take up too much space, or to let someone else talk. I've caught myself adjusting my voice, softening my opinions, and second-guessing my words just to avoid being labeled as too much. But here's the thing. Why should I? Why should any of us? The women in steampunk stories don't ask for permission to be who they are. They invent, explore, and rewrite the rules. They don't waste time worrying about whether the world finds them acceptable. What if we took a page from their book? What if we let go of the need to be liked and focused instead on being real? It's not easy, but I'd rather be unapologetically myself than live my life trying to be proper for everyone else. Steampunk as a symbol of feminist rebellion. What if Victorian women had access to futuristic technology? What if they could fly, invent, and lead, instead of being told to sit still and be quiet? Steampunk imagines an alternative history where women didn't wait for permission to be powerful. They simply took it. In steampunk stories, women aren't just bystanders. They're engineers designing steam-powered machines, captains steering airships, and rebels fighting against oppressive rules. They don't follow the strict expectations of Victorian society. They shatter them. That's what makes steampunk such a powerful symbol of feminist rebellion. It takes a time period known for limiting women and flips the script. It asks, what if things had been different? And then creates a world where they are. Even today, women face pressure to follow unspoken rules about how to dress, act, and speak. We're expected to be ambitious, but not too ambitious, confident, but not too confident. But steampunk women remind us that we don't have to fit into those boxes. They teach us that power isn't something we have to wait for. It's something we create. Steampunk isn't just about gears and goggles. It's about defying limits. And just like its heroines, we don't need permission to be bold, fearless, and unstoppable. Why this feels personal. When I see a steampunk heroine in a leather corset, gears whirring as she flies an airship, I see the kind of girl I always wanted to be. Bold, unapologetic, free. She doesn't ask for permission. She doesn't worry about being too much. She takes up space, follows her passions, and creates a world where she is in control. Growing up, I often felt the pressure to be the right kind of girl. Polite, agreeable, never too loud. But deep down, I admired the ones who broke the rules, the girls who spoke their minds and didn't care what anyone thought. They reminded me of steampunk heroines, women who didn't let society define them. There's something incredibly powerful about seeing women in steampunk stories reclaim their strength. Instead of being trapped in corsets for beauty's sake, they turn them into armor. It makes me wonder, why shouldn't we do the same? Why should we shrink ourselves to fit into outdated expectations? Steampunk is more than a fun aesthetic. It's a reminder that we are allowed to take risks, explore, and be completely ourselves. It challenges the idea that women need to be soft, delicate, and proper. Instead, it dares us to be fierce, inventive, and unstoppable. Every time I see a steampunk heroine charting her own course, I remember that I have the power to do the same. And so do you. How social media enforces these rules. Instagram makes it seem like we have to be perfect all the time. Flawless skin, perfect outfits, effortless confidence. It's exhausting. The pressure to present a polished, idealized version of ourselves is stronger than ever. And the moment we step outside of that, we risk judgment. It's not just online. Even in workplaces, women are expected to follow unspoken rules about how to look and act. Dress codes subtly tell us to be feminine, but professional. Translation: attractive, but not too attractive. Polished, but not too bold. A man in a suit is just dressed for success, but a woman in a bold outfit? Unprofessional. On social media, confidence is encouraged, but only if it's likable. A woman who posts about her successes risks being called arrogant, while a man doing the same is seen as ambitious. There's pressure to be strong, but not intimidating. To be sexy, but not trashy. To be authentic, but only in a way that's still pleasing to others. The contradictions are exhausting. Even in friendships and relationships, we're expected to filter ourselves. Show just enough personality to be interesting, but not so much that it makes anyone uncomfortable. Steampunk rebels wouldn't follow these ridiculous rules. So why should we? They remind us that we don't need to ask for permission to be bold, messy, real, and completely ourselves. The world doesn't need another carefully curated version of you. It needs the real you, unapologetically. personal reflection. I felt it in job interviews, at family gatherings, even scrolling through Instagram. This quiet, suffocating expectation to be just right. Not too loud, not too opinionated, not too bold. In job interviews, I've carefully chosen my words, making sure I sound confident, but not intimidating. At family gatherings, I've smiled and nodded at comments that made me want to scream. On social media, I've hesitated before posting, wondering if I'm coming across as too much. It's exhausting, this unspoken rule that women have to constantly filter themselves to be liked, respected, or taken seriously. If we stand up for ourselves, we're called difficult. If we stay quiet, we're overlooked. Even when we try to break free, the pressure to conform sneaks back in. We wonder, am I being too assertive? Too emotional? Too direct? It's a constant battle between who we are and who we're expected to be. But here's what I've learned. No matter how much we shrink ourselves, someone will always have an opinion. So why not take up space anyway? Steampunk heroines don't waste time worrying about how they should behave. They lead, invent, and challenge the rules instead of following them. They remind me that I don't have to be just right for anyone. The world needs more bold, fearless women, not watered-down versions of who we think we're supposed to be. And I'd rather be real than just right. Choosing the steampunk path, defying the proper label. How we can break free. What if we stopped trying to be proper and started being ourselves? What if we embraced our quirks, passions, and voices, even when they don't fit the mold? For so long, women have been taught to chase respectability, to be liked, to fit in. But who decided what respectable even means? And why should we let them define us? Steampunk heroines don't ask for approval. They build machines, fly airships, and rewrite the rules. They show us that being strong, smart, and unconventional isn't something to hide. It's something to celebrate. We can do the same. We can redefine what it means to be proper on our own terms. We can be ambitious without apology, confident without guilt, and bold without fear. That means speaking up, even when our voices shake. Wearing what makes us feel powerful, not what makes others comfortable. Taking risks, making mistakes, and refusing to shrink ourselves. It won't always be easy. People will still judge, still expect us to conform. But why live life playing by someone else's rules? Steampunk reminds us that we don't have to follow the path that's been laid out for us. We can forge our own. And maybe, just maybe, we'll inspire others to do the same. Steampunk's message for today's women: we don't have to accept the rules we've been given. We can invent new ones. Steampunk may be a fantasy, but its message is very real. We might not have airships or clockwork weapons, but we have something just as powerful: our ability to challenge outdated expectations. For centuries, women have been told how to dress, speak, and behave to be considered respectable. But why should we follow rules that were never designed to let us thrive? Steampunk heroines don't waste time trying to fit into society's mold. They take risks, speak their minds, and carve out their own futures. They remind us that we don't have to wait for permission to be bold, confident, and unapologetically ourselves. We live in a world that still tries to police how women should act, but we don't have to play along. We can take up space. We can express ourselves freely. We can lead, invent, create, and push boundaries without worrying about whether it makes others uncomfortable. Steampunk teaches us that rebellion isn't just about fighting battles. It's about refusing to be limited by outdated ideas. It's about stepping into our own power, knowing we are enough exactly as we are. So why settle for being proper when we can be unstoppable?